I've been coaching sales leaders for almost 20 years now. And the most common complaint that I hear from sales leaders is, I don't have time to do the important things, the strategic things. Well, you can only imagine what happens when I suggest that they need to be doing one-on-one meetings with each member of their sales team on a regular basis. They cringe. Well, in this episode of Sales and Training, I'm going to tell you why one-on-one meetings are absolutely necessary. This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. Welcome to Sales Untraining. I'm Kelly Riggs, and it is great to have you alongside. It is your weekly sales strategy guide designed to completely rewire your sales brain. And I hope you will like and subscribe to the podcast, but even more importantly, I hope you'll forward an episode, share it with someone who needs to be in the conversation. About sales training, listen, it's not that we don't know how to do sales training. It's just that the way it gets executed at the corporate level is seriously flawed. Not because I say so, actually because the numbers say so. Hey, in this episode today, I want to talk a little bit about one-on-one meetings. Now, hey, don't tune me out yet, okay? Because it's really interesting. The single most common complaint that I hear, as I mentioned in the open, is, Kelly, I'd love to do all these things. I'd love to spend more time coaching, training. I'd love to spend more time developing strategy and pipeline management and all these things. You just don't get it. And I always know what's coming next. I don't have time. Hey, listen, as an aside, corporate leaders, business owners, CEOs, you have to take some of the weight off of your sales leaders so they can actually do what you pay them to do. And that's to create pipeline and develop salespeople and build revenue, right? But instead of, managing systems and processes and budgets and CRM and going to meetings ad nauseum, let them do their jobs. That's a whole nother podcast for another time. A couple of people I could bring on board, we could talk about that. But one of the critical things that I learned early on in my career, way back in the 80s, is the value of the manager doing one-on-one meetings with the salesperson. Now, when I was a young guy, mid-20s, I had no idea that my manager was doing one-on-one meetings, but every Monday morning I called his office. In fact, 35, 40 years later, I still remember the phone number. That's what's bizarre, is I would call him up and we would have a 30-minute conversation. And I didn't know how to be a sales manager. And by the way, the training that I got when I got promoted to sales manager was very concise. It went like this. Good luck. Many of you have been in that sales training, sales management training process along with me. But, so I did what a lot of managers do. I copied some of the things that I'd learned, and then I tried to make everybody like me, which was a train wreck. But the things that I copied from one particular boss led me eventually to be very successful as a sales manager. And it's because of the things I learned. I did not have these inherent intrinsic capabilities. And by the way, I made boatloads of mistakes along the way as a sales leader. But I learned some processes. One of those that I learned was the value of one-on-one meetings weekly with my direct reports, my salespeople. Now, people hear that and their heads explode. They're like, what are you talking about? I have 6, 7, 8, 10 salespeople reporting to me, and you want me to meet 30 minutes with each one of them every week? Yep, I do. Now, first off, if you have more than 6 or 7 direct reports, that's too many, but that's a whole nother discussion. That's a whole different ball of wax that we need to consider. But I want to tell you something, and I want you to think about this. I want you to internalize it. Do you realize that managing salespeople is pay me now or pay me later? You're going to invest the time The only real question is, are you going to do it proactively, productively, or are you going to do it reactively in drive-by conversations throughout the week? Because you're going to spend the time with your salespeople. It's just a question of when and how. I would rather manage it, do it proactively, and get something predictable out of it rather than running around in my firefighter's outfit putting out fires all day, every day. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Because that's what most typical sales leaders look like. They look like they're wearing their firefighter outfit all day long. Oddly enough, it kind of makes us feel, needed. It makes us feel important, solving problems, putting out fires, making decisions, doing everything for the salesperson that, frankly, I should have taught them to do themselves. And if I was doing one-on-ones, I would have the opportunity to do that. It's really interesting that we don't have time to do the important things because we're spending that time being reactive on a consistent basis. One-on-one meetings with my direct reports enable me to be far more effective. Now, the first book that I wrote was called One-on-One Management, What Every Great Manager Knows That You Don't. Yeah, it's sort of a pretentious title, I get it. But I talk at length about the value of one-on-one meetings along with a lot of other things. And this was in 2008. And back in 2008, I didn't read very much online, on LinkedIn, on any of the social sites. I didn't read much about one-on-one meetings. It seemed to be pretty unique to most people. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't going on. I just wasn't reading a lot about it. But it has become far more popular now, and there's a tremendous amount of data and research out there about them. But later on, a friend of mine, a guy by the name of Mike Weinberg, wrote this book, Sales Management Simplified. And in one of his chapters, he talks about regular one-to-one results-focused meetings and how important they are. And so I want to encourage you to get a copy of Weinberg's book. He's a fantastic teacher, trainer, coach, salesperson, and he's written a number of books, including First Time Sales Manager, which I've talked about in the past. But this particular book, Sales Management Simplified, is pretty amazing. By the way, before we go on, if you'd like a copy of this book, One-on-One Management, send me an email. I'll send you a copy for free. I'll even pay the postage. So send me an email. Happy to send it to you. And you can learn about one-on-one meetings and how to conduct them. Now, Mike and I do them a little differently, but the intent is exactly the same. It's designed to put you face-to-face with your salesperson so that you can do a number of things. Number one is you're trying to build a commonality, a relationship, and communicate effectively with that individual. Instead of generic ideas and, emails and just throwing information out, I'm actually having a conversation. The whole intent of a one-on-one meeting is to have a dialogue. It's to have a conversation. In fact, if you're dominating the one-on-one meeting, I can tell you unequivocally you're doing it wrong, and your salesperson is going to think you're a micromanager. It's like, it's horrible because I go in and I get grilled for 30 to 45 minutes about everything I'm doing wrong and everything I need to change, and I get told how to fix it and all those kinds of things. Guys, it's not a one-on-one meeting, okay? But Weinberg has got a couple of questions that he advocates that you ask in a one-on-one meeting. I love the questions, and you can implement them as well. Number one, can you name for me the new opportunities that are in your pipeline today that were not there last month? Number two, can you name for me the existing opportunities that you moved forward in your sales process in the time since we spoke last? In other words, he's focused on pipeline management and growth and development, and that's what sales leaders are about. I mean, if we're going to lead something, that should be it. But I want to really warn you against turning these one-on-one meetings into nothing more than a status update. Listen, we do that all day long. You've got CRM and reporting to do all of that. Well, what we're trying to do is have a conversation where we can do some very important things. As I mentioned, develop a relationship, align our expectations, communicate more effectively about all kinds of things that are happening. But even more importantly, to find out how you're doing, what's going on, what kind of help you need, and to begin to coach you and teach you how to deal with unique scenarios. Look, most sales leaders do not spend anywhere near enough time coaching. So how about a specific period of time each and every week where you get the opportunity to do just that? To have a little bit of time to go over something in particular that you've talked about that in that meeting, or that you've noticed in behavior or performance in the last week, and to have a conversation about it. Now, this really works well because I create a cadence of meeting, and the expectations get created of what these meetings look like and how they're going to go and how they're going to impact the salesperson. And by definition, they begin to create accountability towards very specific things. And if you're asking very specific questions about pipeline movement and pipeline growth, you're going to create accountability to exactly that. Can you do these wrong? Yes. Can you create something that doesn't work effectively? Absolutely. But I'm just going to tell you straight up, one-on-one meetings with your direct reports will not only change the culture of your team, but you'll much more rapidly develop your team, and you'll much more rapidly, in fact, in real time, uncover performance issues that you can resolve on the fly. Why in the world would you wait till an end of the year annual performance review, which, by the way, A, don't work, B, nobody likes, okay? Not my opinion. All the research says that. Why would you wait? If there's a performance issue, we need to address it now in real time and move on. Well, coming up next, I'm going to show you exactly how to take one-on-one meetings and turn them into powerhouse opportunities to develop salespeople. Stay with me. Hey, thanks for making Sales Untraining your first listen of the week. And if you find something you like, if you hear something that's interesting, I hope you'll share it with somebody you know. You can find out more about me at bizlockerroom.com or email me, kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Now back to the show. Hey, I want to take just a minute and I want to talk a little bit more about the book that I've introduced from Mike Weinberg. Mike and I are friends, and we think very much alike, and this book, Sales Management Simplified, is simply amazing. It's a fantastic addition to your sales leadership library. You absolutely should have it if you are at all serious about being effective as a sales leader. I have been training salespeople, sales leaders of all kinds, really, for 20 years now. And you don't run across books that are this good very, very often. I want to just give you a taste of what some of the chapters look like in this particular book, because Mike not only talks about one-on-one meetings and a number of other practical, tactical things, but listen to the chapters, the titles of some of these chapters. Sales suffer when the manager wears the fire chief's helmet. Turning a blind eye to the perennial underperformer does more damage than you realize. Entrepreneurial visionary leaders forget that their people can't do what they do. A healthy sales culture changes everything. Sales managers must get out in the field with their salespeople. Look, as he says, this is blunt truth, and it is, my friend. It is fantastic. It is fantastic for developing your skills as a sales leader. Way, way happy to recommend, very highly recommend, Mike Weinberg's books, all of them. Sales Management Simplified, First Time Sales Leader, and the other books that he has written. Make sure you get your copy. Welcome back to Sales Untraining, as we talk about one-on-one meetings and the importance of them. And if you're not convinced, you should be, because I've been teaching sales leaders and executive leaders one-on-one meetings for, again, almost 20 years now. And it is the one thing that I talk about routinely, that the response I most commonly get from leaders is, this is a game changer. Their words, not mine. This is a game changer. And I don't know why I didn't think of it a long time ago, but everybody almost to a person resists right out of the chute, because they all say the same thing. Kelly, I just don't have time. I love it. I love the concept. I think improving communication and intersecting with my people and giving them a chance to tell me their input and to coach them. I mean, there's a laundry list of benefits of doing one-on-one meetings. Love it. However, when am I going to find time to do this? And I always tell them the same thing. It will suck at first because it will feel like you're adding time to your day. However, what happens is you begin to recoup that time, that 30 minutes you invested in that conversation with someone on a weekly basis. Oh, you get that time back in multiples down the road because you've already covered critical items. You've dealt with things. You've talked about issues and problems and so forth, but you've done it proactively, face-to-face, with some preparation. And so they don't have those drive-by calls down the road where they're randomly calling you or sending you emails or requesting a meeting or whatever. A lot of that begins to disappear. Again, pay me now or pay me later. How do you want to invest your time? And I've been saying this for a long time. Leadership, in many ways, is about changing the way you invest your time. If you invest all your time in solving all the problems, making all the decisions, dealing with all the drama and every other thing that comes along, then you get what you get from doing that. If you invest your time in communicating, developing your people, coaching them effectively, and proactively teaching them how to deal with a lot of those issues on their own, then you'll get what you get out of that. The thing about it is one-on-one meetings, coaching and developing people, it doesn't fit into our model of efficiency. We're hardwired to be efficient as doers. As salespeople, I could have 12 plates in the air and I could be juggling all kinds of things and I'd catch one and throw it back up and do my thing, right? But as a sales leader, trying to be efficient with people, that's a non-starter. You have to invest in people and be effective with them, which by definition is not very efficient at the time, but it buys you multiples of time in the future. So, 3 things that we want to get out of doing one-on-one meetings with people. I mentioned that the big caveat is these are not status updates. You do status updates all the time. You're always looking at CRM and looking at pipeline reports and doing all of that. It doesn't mean we can't talk about an opportunity. It doesn't mean we can't ask those general questions, as I mentioned in Weinberg's book. Tell me about something that's been added. Tell me about something that you've progressed. But what we want to do first and foremost is help that salesperson understand this is not my meeting. As the manager, this isn't for me. It's for you. I want to ask the questions that get you talking and providing input. But this meeting's about you. So here's what you can do. If you find yourself talking more than roughly 25% of the time, the odds are pretty good you're doing the meeting wrong. You're dominating the meeting. You're driving it. You're telling them what to do. You're directing them and all that. And that leads me to point number 2 is that's not what the meeting's for either. You're not here to tell people what to do next and how to fix it and all that. You're trying to give them the opportunity to learn from you. So when they're struggling or they've made a mistake or something's not going well, you don't say, okay, hey, write this down. Here's what you do. I want you to go do this, and this, because that's not teaching someone how to be effective on their own. No, it's not. I'm sorry. You might think it is. Kelly, I told them what to do. They should know now. Now, when you tell people what to do, they turn their thinking brain off and they simply do what they're told. And what's bizarre is they'll come back a week later, have the same problem, and you'll be solving it again for them. That's not my objective. My objective is to teach, train, coach, develop that salesperson so they can begin to handle a lot of these uncertain, ambiguous situations on their own. I mean, you learned how to do it, so let's transfer that knowledge to them. How? By asking them questions. Wow, sounds like a selling skill, doesn't it? If you're a great salesperson, you probably know how to ask effective questions. So how do you think we should approach this? As you think about it, what would be your idea about how to handle it? Tell me why that pops to mind. Well, what happens if you think about this variable or this factor? Yeah, it changes things, doesn't it? So how would we move forward? It's simply a discovery call that is designed to ask questions out loud to teach them how to think about solving problems. It's a skill. It's a skill you can learn, but it's a skill you probably already have, typically, that you used effectively as a salesperson. But now, instead of simply telling them what to do, ask them the questions that lead them inevitably to the conclusions. But when you're asking questions, they have to engage their brain, which means they're listening and they're thinking. That's exactly what we want. Number 3, without question, the one thing that leaders don't do well almost universally is they don't provide adequate recognition and encouragement to the people that work for them. It is the single most powerful leadership tool you have, is to provide recognition and encouragement to the people that work for you. People always do better, do more, are more effective in a culture of positivity and encouragement. When they know that they're valued, there's not much they won't do for you. Now, I'm not talking about throwing out, cheap compliments every week just so you can check off a box. I'm talking about genuine, heartfelt encouragement and recognition. You know what I mean? When somebody really is doing well or does something really spectacular, or they've made progress, or you've seen improvement, to look them in the eye and to tell them how important they are and that you're proud of them and that they're doing a great job. You really like the way they're listening and they're improving their skills. That stuff matters. I mean, it matters in a big way. So 101s give me the opportunity to teach and coach and develop, gives me the opportunity to encourage and recognize people, and it gives me the opportunity to review pipeline, even if it's only pieces and parts, which keeps their focus on the most important thing they do, developing pipeline. Hey, listen, I hope you found it valuable. Make sure you send an email to me if you'd like a free copy of One-on-One Management, What Every Great Manager Knows That You Don't. Happy to send you a copy. I'll see you next time.
Sales on Training is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.